industry had to comply, and the agricultural sector had to comply as well. However, this doesn't preclude other sectors like the private sector and other forms of industry. The next point that I've got on here, I'll explain as we get to it, and then I will eventually end off with a possible way forward, but I believe that we are flowing upstream. We are not coming with the normal run-of-the-mill recommendation as recommended by the majority of consultants in the area. This is just an idea, a picture to show you how well managed our water system is by the Department of Water Affairs. This is a couple of kilometers away from our family farm. Over here at this point, you're supposed to have a fall of about 1 to 2 meters so that you can actually accurately measure the flow of water in the stream. We've been getting regular data from this sampling point, but I would like to know, how does the poor young lady who's measuring it get to that box to read the data, to change the graphs, and how on earth is there a fall here to measure the flow of water? We also have municipal sewage works just upstream, which does think to this, and I'm prepared to guarantee you that the young lady does not walk into that water because it's polluted, and she's not measuring it, so she's thumb-sucking. I've put this slide on, and I've put the next slide on to show that I do know there is legislation in South Africa. I'm not going to discuss it in detail. However, right in the middle is one of the important ones. Each province has also got its own legislation, and there are a whole number of these that come to play. However, being an environmental activist, this one is the one that served us as a community possibly the best when we were fighting the mining industry and the government. Why I say we were fighting the government is we as end users were having our farms polluted, our cattle died, my mom's health was affected, my health was affected, our staff on the farm were affected, so too were our neighbors affected by the water pollution. But we could not get the government to apply their own laws or to enforce their own laws. We took water samples and we got the police to come out and take water samples. We laid criminal charges against the mine, and the water samples disappeared out of the police station. We took more water samples, and they also disappeared. The third time round, we started taking split samples and sent a couple of samples overseas and sent a couple to labs in South Africa and said, we're interested in buying a farm in this area. Do you think this water is adequate for irrigation? And one that comes to mind was, don't go within 100 miles of that farm. Now, if you have this type of information, you say, great, now we've got something, we can do something about it. And you ask the people, please give it to us in a report, we'd like to tackle one of the mines in our area, and then all of a sudden the laboratory doesn't want to give you a report. It makes one think, is there a problem? How do you handle it? And at that stage, the government was not looking after us. When you look at the history of the Wonderfonteinspruit in our area, the earliest settlers arrived in 1935, 1938, and a couple of years later, Sir Ailey Bailey, a mining magnate in the area, put up a lodge and he planted alfalfa for his hunting lodge for his horses and for his cattle pulling the wagons. And that was the first time that agriculture was done on the northern banks of the Vaal River, planting alfalfa. And then we started picking up problems in the area because people started complaining they wanted the water. In 1905, 3 cowboys, 3 farmers in the Pretoria area held the government and the municipality to ransom of Pretoria because they claimed that they owned the water rights at the fountains which supplied the water for Pretoria. Judge Wessels was then asked to head the Wessels Commission to look into dolomite and underground water. But the reason they didn't do it in Pretoria is they didn't want to warn the people that they were looking at it. So the area that they looked at was in the area that I come from Bank to Friedrichstadt, which is about 50 kilometers long. And Judge Wessels in his report wrote something along the lines of, we walked underground for many miles along this banks of flowing water. And this created a very big shift in the change in water law in South Africa at the time. Because water in dolomitic compartments was then deemed to be flowing in known and defined channels. And because of this, it changed from private water to public water. This then affected the change in the 1912 Water Act in South Africa. In 1913, the whole West Rand Basin was then declared a subterranean water control area, and this affected the mining industry. Now, the agricultural lobby at this time was still very, very powerful. This is a sketch of caves in our area where Judge Wessels walked underground to determine the flow of the water in the known and defined channels. And that family farm is somewhere in that area. So they went down the caves on our family farm, and this shows there's a history of our family being involved with this type of problem. In 1912, and this we found very interesting, the Governor General was involved in all water-related issues affecting gold mining or mining in South Africa. However, all other water issues were referred to Parliament. So this shows you that the Raj at the time felt that mining was very important to fund the colonial government, and therefore only the Governor General's signature was necessary to effect changes. However, for agriculture and any other purpose, water law or water legislation had to go through Parliament. This was then remedied with the 1956 Act. Now, the 1956 Act is roughly when my father, one of the co-authors, got involved. We were farming in the area, and then all of a sudden our crops started dying and our cattle started aborting, and a cow would abort, she would tear and bleed to death, and we never knew why. And the wheat would show the effects of drought even though you were irrigating. However, neighbors on other farms not using the irrigation water would have bumper crops. And when a couple of farmers started experiencing the same problems, they got together and took on the government and said, there are problems here with the mining industry. And at that stage, the Department of Water Affairs said to the farmers they are lying. And we've got it in writing, we've still got the original documents. When the farmers realized what was happening, it was already too late. What one of the mines was doing in the area, they went underground and they were taking the water for mining purposes. And when they dewatered the compartment, they went underground and took water from the neighboring compartment to then assist in their mining operations. However, they didn't take it into consideration that the pressure of the water would then burst the bubble and the dike would burst, and then one of the mines then flooded. At that stage, the water then went into the mine workings, and to save the mine pumped out the water from underground into the stream above, and that polluted the drinking water. And this is a major problem even today. Water problems in this context, there is nothing new. It's been there, it's a fight between the people who have and the people who don't. If you look at the whole basin from the east of Johannesburg all the way downstream, it's there, it's always been there. It's a fight between the irrigators and the mining industry, and I think you have it all over the world as well. This is a stream diversion in the area where 3 mines dump water in this area and take it over a dewatered compartment because of flooding and sinkhole formation. This is a tailings dam, and that area there was a sinkhole. And this tailings dam, we know of 56 sinkholes in this tailings dam in 10 years. And all that slime has gone down into the underground compartments. The tow paddocks here are supposed to be kept clean for 1 in 100 year flood. So if we have a lot of rain, they can catch the overflow off the top. But to save money, the mines don't clean them. I'm not going to touch on the Constitution, everybody's done that. And I'm not going to look at riparian rights, we've done that. So I've decided to just put in a couple of extra personal comments from this. This is known as the Golden Ark in South Africa. And these are the mines roughly in this area. Now, the town that I come from, Potchefstroom, where the Northwest University is, has got one of the only uncontaminated compartments from mining at this stage. We do have a little bit of diamond mining in the area, but it's not that bad and it's not creating problems. One of the ideas that we are looking at is to augment the underground water supply by drilling more boreholes in the form of a sponge because of the dolomite formation, and this has been proved in these areas here where the mines put in a lot of boreholes and the water flow from the natural fountains actually improved over a period of time. This will allow the municipality to be able to save water in wet years and use it in drier years. When you look at how mining has impacted on legislation, we have an organization called the Far West Rand Dolomitic Water Association, and the government is party to 66% of the association, and the other 33% is owned by the mining industry. The mines were asked or told by the government to volunteer and on a voluntary basis form the association, otherwise they would change legislation. They would not allow them to dewater and to pump out the water from the mines unless they became members of the Far West Rand. So this is a way in which the farming or the agricultural lobby still put pressure on in the 1956 Act to ensure that the government was at least trying to do a semblance of environmental management, even though they didn't pull it through all the way. In our area, it is possibly the most studied and the most complex catchment in the country. We have students from all over the world coming and looking at it. Because we've got records going back over 100 years, we've got a lot of universities and a lot of money that has been put into this. Especially at the moment when people are talking of the acid mine drainage reaching up to the foundations of building in Johannesburg. This is an airborne radiometric map that nearly got me into jail. The red just shows higher levels. It doesn't show that it's really dangerous, but it is dangerous, and the yellow and the blue show less.